Are you tired of all the baloney? Well, you know what you need. Straight talk with Jack Graham. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. Now, here is Jack Graham.
CONCORD Jazz. It's a great label, you know. We all know Contemporary, Pablo, Riverside, Verve, all these big labels that get a lot of notoriety, here online and elsewhere. But CONCORD Jazz is a really, really interesting record label, and a CONCORD group that owns many other labels we'll get into in a minute. They with the catalog they own, boy, there's a lot of stuff there that could be brought back, I hope. Are you listening, Chad? Eddie or Zev Feldman or anybody else is bringing back some great music. Well, anyhow, thank you all for being here and coming back and checking out what's going on here. I just want to speak a little bit today about CONCORD Jazz. CONCORD Jazz, I normally don't have notes when I'm doing these videos. I kind of speak off the top of my head, but I do have some notes today because there's a lot of detail, and I don't want to bore you, but I'm not going to go through it in depth. But there's a lot of detail that I think it would be interesting to know. So in 1960, first of all, Concord, California is in the East Bay, what they call the East Bay. It's obviously east of San Francisco, maybe on a straight line about 20 miles, maybe. It's in a really pretty area. And Carl Jefferson, who owned a Lincoln Mercury dealer, one of the bigger ones in the country, in Concord, was a jazz aficionado, and in 1969 decided to have a jazz festival in Concord, California. Concord's not a very big city. It's bigger, way bigger than it was back then, but it's nestled in this valley. A really pretty area, but they decided to have this jazz festival, and it was in an open area, and they brought some great players in there. They had some issues with the local people because there was a lot of noise, of course, and parking was an issue and what have you. It sold out. So in 1975, between 69 and 75, Jefferson decided to build a pavilion in Concord, which is still there and still does concerts. And it's called the Concord Pavilion, of course. So they would bring in really great players from the West Coast and the East Coast. Just a little chronological information here. In 1999, Concord, which was founded in the early 70s, was sold by a financial group that was included Norman Lear, the comedy TV writer, and they began extending what was already going on with Concord Jazz from their inception. CONCORD Jazz Records from their inception, and added a lot of players that really aren't jazz players. They did a collaboration with Paul McCartney. They just had a lot of people on there that was really really influential outside of the jazz world. I think they did I think Starbucks was involved with that McCartney thing. But anyhow, so Concord kept putting out great music, which we're going to get to here in a minute. So in 2004, Concord, they merged with Fantasy Records, and soon after became involved and bought the catalogs of great labels like Riverside and Telarc, and just some amazing stuff. I do have some notes here. Most of their stuff was recorded. Their records were recorded in Coast Recorders in San Francisco. Great studio, one of the better studios in America. And Phil Edwards, highly regarded engineer, was involved. And they made really great sounding records. We had contemporary back in the 50s and 60s, and then of course, Concord in the 70s. And I won't say they're at the same level as contemporary as far as their sound, but they're very close. Their recordings are exceptionally good. Did a lot of great live recordings, which we're going to get to. Anyhow, I don't want to keep boring you with information, but they just did a lot of stuff here and became involved with Riverside, Prestige, Pablo, Telarc. I mean, a lot of labels that they still own the rights to, and there's a lot of music there. I hope it comes out. Of course, Kraft Records is still owned by the Concord Group and has reissued many reissues now by Riverside and Prestige, and of course Concord itself, and among other people. And that catalog includes the Bill Evans stuff and other major records that I know a lot of you have. So yeah, that's just a quick. And they're still active today, so I mean they're still around. So let's talk about some of the music here that was part of the Concord Group. I don't know. I maybe have. There's their series ended in a 400 series, so they pressed a lot of records. And I probably own about half the catalog, maybe a little less. I still look for Concord when I'm out in the record stores because their recordings are very reasonable still, and there's just great music. Let's go through some of it. So one of the earliest records that they made, this is CJ. Everything is CJ with a number after it. And again, it goes from 0 up to the 400 series. This is CJ8. And this is the LA4. And the LA4 is a group of 4 people. They've changed some of the personnel over the years. The early days was Lorenzo Almeida, the great guitarist. Of course, Ray Brown. Shelly Manne and Bud Shank. What a great group. They did just some great stuff. They did some retakes of some light classical stuff with some jazz tunes and some kind of Latin stuff. And it's just some really great stuff. This is a early 1975 Concord CJ8. All these LA4 records are really good. I'd encourage you to look them all up. There's many of them. Let's see a few of them. This is CJ9. Look at this, Barney Kessel. And this is a great record too. This is. I actually have a couple copies of this because I picked them up for less than $5. Some of these. On this record is Barney Kessel, Chuck DeMonico, kind of a LA bass player. Of course, Victor Feldman on vibes. Jake Hanna on drums. You're going to see a lot of names on a lot of records that kind of are repetitive. Jimmy Rolls, the great pianist. I think Jimmy Rolls did some of his greatest music with Zoot Sims on the Pablo label. I think we talked about that in a prior video. This is CJ9. Of course, Barney Kessel, who made a lot of records for contemporary. And this is done in 1975. A great sounding record. Barney Kessel, yeah. Again, a repetitive name, but we just mentioned Jake Hanna. Jake Hanna is a drummer, big band drummer and a small group drummer, very versatile drummer, based, I believe, in Los Angeles at the time. And this is a record that he did with Carl Fontana. Carl Fontana is maybe my favorite trombone player. He and Frank Rossellino, great players. But Carl Fontana, what a great player. Just look him up if you can find stuff by him. It's just a great player. And of course, again, Bill Berry on trumpet. You'll hear Bill's name. He did some big band things with Concord. Plas Johnson is on this, saxophonist, known for the Pink Panther theme. And Dave McKenna and Herb Minkman on bass. I don't know him. But again, this was done live in the Concord Pavilion in 1975. This is one of their best sounding records. If you can find this, by all means, get it. I'm trying to keep the glare off of this. Hannah Fontana, big band live at Concord. You can see the pavilion down here. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful venue in Concord, California. Then we have another record. This is CJ12. Herb Ellis, Ray Brown, sextet with Harry Edison, Plas Johnson, Mike Melvoin, pianist from New Jersey, and Jake Hanna on drums. But this is a really, really good record. This is CJ12 called Hot Tracks. Real swinging record. Some names that are not household names, but have been recorded on Concord. Richie Kamuka. Richie Kamuka is a tenor player who did some work with a lot of people. He worked with Chet Baker. He worked with a lot of West Coast people, but a really, really, really good player. Kind of in that West Coast sounding tenor. This is with Dave Frischberg, great pianist, composer, lives in Portland, Oregon these days, I'm hearing. Of course, Ray Brown and Herb Ellis. Ray Brown's on a lot of these records, and boy, do they sound good. And I got to tell you, Ray Brown's amazing. Richie Kamuka, Drop Me Off in Harlem on Concord Jazz, CJ39. Kenny Burrell recorded on Concord Jazz. See some of the names that have been here. This is called Tintindio, tune made famous by Dizzy Gillespie, but written by the conga player Chano Pozo, I believe, Latin type tune. And of course, Carl Burnett, Reggie Johnson. I don't know these folks, but Kenny plays really well on here. There's very few records Kenny Burrell doesn't play well on. Tintindio on Concord. This is CJ 45. There's another group. Jefferson did a lot of things kind of in the Pablo style, where he would put players together and do kind of session recordings. And again, all of them. I haven't heard a bad one. This is with Snooky Young, Marshall Royal. Remember Marshall, saxophonist. Freddie Green on guitar, bassy, like 38 years. Boom, 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 boom. Made some records on his own, but with bassy. I don't think he ever played a solo in a bassy band. Ross Tompkins, pianist. Ross Tompkins, you may have seen on the early Tonight Show. If you watch some of the old YouTube videos of Carson, he's the pianist in that band. Kind of a quiet guy. Remember, he did a duo in Toluca Lake in the Valley, in San Bernardino Valley, with Jack Sheldon every Sunday night. Really great player, Ross Tompkins on piano. Ray Brown again, Lee Belson on drums. Scatman Crothers does a vocal on this as well. But this is done in 1978. This is, it's just Snooky Young and Marshall's album, CJ 55, one of the classics from Concord Jazz. Again, another Ray Brown's Jimmy Rolls record that I really enjoy. It's called Tasty, and it is. on Concord Jazz. This is Concord Jazz 122. What I like about Concord Jazz, they put their little Concord Jazz logo on the front of every record, and they put the number right under the record so we can reference it. But this is CJ 122. Ray Brown, Jimmy Rolls, great player. Art Farmer recorded for Concord Jazz. And this is done in the 70s, I believe. CJ 179, a work of art. Really, really great record. The young Fred Hirsch on piano. We're going to talk in another video coming up of some of the great players that are playing around today that are still fortunately with us. And, of course, Fred Hirsch. Bill Bodley on bass, I don't know. Great Billy Hart, Mr. Time on drums. Concord Jazz, a work of art. And this is done, I guess, in probably, this is later, 1980, 81 maybe, if I'm remembering right. But Art Farmer on Concord. This is a late one. Here's a Stan Getz record on Concord. Stan Getz recorded on Concord Jazz. This is a great record. A great record, and this is getting a little pricey, this record, but it's really, really a good record called Pure Getz. One of the best sounding records Concord ever did, with Jim McNeely on piano, Mark Johnson, bass player, worked with a lot of people back then. Worked with Pat Metheny, Victor Lewis on piano, and again Billy Hart on drums. Stan Getz, really great album, Pure Getz. I have to listen to this. I haven't heard that in a while. There's another LA Ford that I really like. This is called Just Friends, and it's the same group, other than a little bit older guys, because this was done in, I'm looking here, I'm guessing probably in the 80s. Mid-80s, 83 maybe, 84. This is a great record. Just Friends, CJ 199. Finish up here with the recordings. Mel Torme recorded some vocalists. Recorded Carmen McRae was on Concord Jazz. Mary McPartland on piano was on Concord Jazz. CJ 306 with Rob McConnell and the Boss Brass. Now, Rob McConnell is from... I believe he's from the Toronto area. Canadian, had a big band, did a lot of, probably 10 great records. And they worked with Mel Torme on a number of them. But a real swinging band. This is a great record. This is just a digital recording. So this is digital to analog. As we get older in years with Concord Jazz, done in 86, I still believe that this is, even though it's a digital record, it's really a tight group. You'll enjoy that. McConnell's a great band leader, great arranger, real talented guy. I just picked this one up. This is CJ 366, was done in the 80s. When Ray Brown stopped working with Oscar Peterson, he formed his own trio with Gene Harris of the Three Sounds, pianist, and on this record we have Jeff Hamilton on drums. Jeff and I went to Indiana together, Indiana University in the 70s, drummer, with Harry Edison. Harry, in my top 3 trumpet players of all time. Red Holloway on tenor. Great record. This, you can see the price on here if you can see it. $3. I think I picked this up a few months ago up in Detroit in one of the record stores when I went up to Detroit. But CJ 366, a great record. This is commemorative of the 20th Concord Jazz Festival All-Stars. Harry Edison plays wonderful on that. And then the highest I have is a CJ 322, Red Holloway. And look who's on this. The Blue Note guys. Cedar Walton, Richie Reed and Jimmy Smith, the drummer. So, we think this is all West Coast players, but, Cedar Walton's on this when he lived at some time on the West Coast. There's also a fair amount of compact discs that Concord did that some of them aren't available on vinyl. I'm going to go through these pretty quick. Here's another LA4, and this is called Zaca, Z-A-C-A. This is Concord CCD 4130. This is recorded in Europe. It was only put out in Germany. It's a German CD, and it's all analog with, of course, the digital CD. But again, it's that same group: Almeida, Ray Brown, Jeff Alden, Bud Shank. This is a little pricey, but I think it's one of their best records. Zaca on Concord Jazz. Here's another All-Star Festival. This is from 1990, and this is Ed Bickert, guitar player from Canada, great player. Alan Dawson on drums, Harry Edison, Al Gray from the Basie Band, Gene Harris on piano, McConnell, Benny Powell. Any of these Concord Jazz that has a compilation of great players, they were all good. This is a festival from 1990 recording. Here's another Mel Torme with George Shearing. And this is live, at a club called Charlie's back in 1981. Mel Torme on Concord. This is a great record, great CD. This is never put out on vinyl. This is called Dear Mr. Batesy. Fujitsu was one of the sponsors that was very, very active with Concord Records and the Concord Jazz Festival. A lot of records are done in Japan with Concord musicians. And this is one. This is a Frank West, Harry Edison big band. So a lot of Basie players on this. This is a kind of, this is done after Basie passed, of course, but some great players on this. Frank West, the flute player with Basie. If you listen to Fly Me to the Moon with Sinatra, he's playing a flute in the background. Frank West. So it's the Frank West Harry Edison Orchestra. Dear Mr. Basie. Get this. It's maybe my favorite Concord recording of all time. Never put out on vinyl. Dear Mr. Basie. What a sound, too. Jack Sheldon recorded a record on and of course this is done in L.A. or done in San Francisco, record records, but called the Jack Sheldon Quintet. Done, I'm guessing again in the late '80s, maybe close to 1990. Of course, Jack sitting in the director's chair. Jack Sheldon. Louis Bellson, Primetime. This is a small group with Blue Mitchell, trumpet player, you all know. Pete Chrisley, great tenor player. You'll see him in the Tonight Show band too. Russ Tompkins, pianist. And John Williams, not the one you think, but he's a bass player. And this is done. Louis Bellson, I got to tell you, Louis Bellson, unlike some of the other big band drummers, I'll remain nameless, really could play big band and small groups effectively, very, very effectively. I should do a drummer video one of these days. But Bellson, how about Gary Burton, Chick Corea, Pat Metheny, Roy Haynes, and Dave Holland, called Like Minds. Great, great, great group on Concord Records. They had just a wealth of personalities, great musicians recorded for Concord that I bet you didn't know about. Here's one everybody should find. Phil Woods, my hero, what a player. With Bill Charlap on piano. We're going to talk about him in a future video. Still doing some great work. Steve Gilmore, of course, Bill Goodwin on drums. But this was done at the Mile High Jazz Festival in Denver. This may be a little hard to find, I don't know, in 1996. Phil Woods on Concord. It's a great, great, great recording. And my, Joey DeFrancisco passed a couple of years ago. The great Hammond B3 player. Did a number of CDs on Concord. This is with Jimmy Smith, his hero. They're both on this record called Incredible, and it is incredible on Concord Jazz. And then there's one he did live. It's called The Authorized Bootleg. The interesting thing about this record is George Coleman, the alto player that we know from the Miles Davis quintet recordings, Seven Steps to Heaven, etc., is on this. So I guess where I'm going with Concord Jazz is great sounding records, great players, and again, they own a treasure trove of music: Prestige, Verve, Pablo, Telarc, more. And I hope we can get some of that reissued. I guarantee you some of these tapes are in great, great, great shape. I'd love to hear that Zaka, the LA4, done on vinyl. Chad, if you're listening to this or anybody else, it'll work. It might be something down the road. I know you've got everybody's got projects coming out, but it'll work. Anyhow, thank you all I hope you're still here, learning about Concord Records. I still am too. There's so much there that I don't have that I'm looking for. Their recordings, if you can find them, are still reasonably priced. Some great music. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.